Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Today's the Day Changemakers Podcast. I am Jody Grunwald. I am so happy to have back with me my very special guest co-host, Scott Chesney, motivational speaker and coach. He is known to many as the Commander in Change. Together, we interview Geeta Trikha, founder and CEO of Anjali Assoc, LLC, a personal leadership development company. Geeta is a certified consultant of Bob Proctor and Proctor Gallagher Institute. She serves on the Advisory Board Council for the Stillman School of Business Leadership Program at Seton University, and she also is a consultant and mentor to the Women's Leadership Program at the Stillman School. Geeta was born in India and came to the United States when she was just around 8 or 9 years old. She shares what her very first days were like when she arrived here. She started her professional journey working in the banking industry and then moved over to working in pharmaceutical sales, where she was very successful. But something personal happened that changed Geeta's professional direction. Now she is helping people discover who they really are, how their mind works, how to be in harmony with the laws of the universe to create a life of true abundance. She explains more about the Anjali principles and her work with the Proctor Gallagher Institute during this interview. Please subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel, download the podcast on all streaming sites, like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It, and also go to the todayisthedayliveit.com website for more information. Have a great week, everyone. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Today is the Day Changemakers podcast. I am always so excited because I have the best guests. And this time I am welcoming back, I'm going to call him now a celebrity co-host, Scott Chesney. He is the Commander in Change, and he is an incredible person. And if you go to scottchesney.com, you'll learn more and more about him. He's an incredible life coach, speaker, motivational speaker. And Scott, welcome. So good to have you back.
Thank you, Jody. Always a pleasure to be with you and your remarkable guests. So I just love coming along for the ride, and today's going to be a great one as well.
It really is going to be a great one. And I want to thank you because you've helped to introduce me to some of these incredible guests. So thank you so much for the referrals. I so appreciate it. And hi, Geeta. So nice to see you.
Hi. Yeah, it's great. Really nice to be here with you guys.
So this is the only time that everybody knows I read a little bit is when I read the bio of the incredible guests that I have, because I never want to get anything wrong. They've worked too hard for every word on this page. So Geeta, and tell me if I say your name incorrectly, Trikha?
Trikha, yeah, Geeta Trikha.
Oh, awesome. Founder and CEO, Anjali and Associates, LLC, personal leadership development company, certified consultant of Bob Proctor and Proctor Gallagher Institute. My New York comes out every once in a while, and I miss ours. It's very funny. Advisory Board Council member of Stillman School of Business Leadership Program, Seton University, consultant and mentor to the Women's Leadership Program at Stillman School of Business at Seton University, former South Orange Maplewood Soma chapter leader at BIG, Believe, Inspire, Grow, and former physician relations specialist at Robert Wood Johnson University Hospital. I also want to say that Geeta, true abundance is much more than promotions, raises, being married, providing for family, and making money. Geeta has created a body of work called the Anjali Principles, where she integrates her corporate experience with holistic training to help individuals discover and define personalized blueprints to design their life, money, the relationships, the health, and the career they desire through the lens of abundance. So Geeta, that's a lot, and I could have read a lot more. So.
Wow. Do we need to say anything else? That's like a mic drop. You just like stop recording. That's all needs to be.
Yeah, that was good to hear. There's definitely a lot.
There is, and that there's so much more to the page. And isn't it incredible sometimes when someone else reads our bio, we're like, we did all that?
Yeah. Like, wow, yeah.
I know, it's incredible. And the work that you've been doing, and I know we had our own phone call and chatted for a little bit, and I learned a lot more about you, and I know there's much more to learn. So I want to start I always try to do this in the podcast, to start from the beginning, right? So where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about young Geeta.
Oh my, yeah, that's
I thought she was still young.
Oh yes, I'm sorry.
Childhood. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Childhood Geeta. She is still, we're all young. We're all young.
Okay.
You know, Jody, that really takes me back. I was born in India. I grew up in India. I came to the States. I came to the States about when I was, I want to say, 8 or 9 years of age. And some of the funny things I remember is when we went to school here, I spoke very little English. I actually spoke little to none English. And I remember being on the school bus. And at that time, I want to say I was maybe in second or third grade at that time. And I remember coming home on the school bus, and some of the girls that were in Girl Scouts at the time were selling those little packets of flower seeds, right? It was around that springtime. And I just remember sitting on that bus and looking at it, and they're like, "Do you want to buy this?" And I'm like, "Well, what is it?" They're like, "They're flowers." I'm like, "What do you mean? This thing is going to be flowers?" And it just couldn't connect the dot between that packet of seeds and it really looking like the real thing.
Mm.
And I was excited. I said, "Yeah, I want to buy it." And I literally just digged in my pocket and I had a bunch of change. And I said, "Here, take what you need." Because I couldn't even tell what the money or the change or anything was at that time. And it was really nice. I got to see, I didn't get to plant them, but like a month or 2 months later, I had my family say, "Hey, there's those flowers that you brought." And I was amazed. Yeah.
Wow, that's a really great story. When was the last time you actually thought of that story?
It just kind of dawned on me. That was one of my first stories that I remember, just being in the States. And even the very first day when we arrived, in JFK with my mom and my brothers and my dad was already here. And it was the first time I ever saw snow.
Mm.
It was the first time I ever saw snow, and just driving from JFK to New Jersey was such a long ride. And everywhere you just see this like sheets of white sand, what looked like white sand. And coming from India where it's like snow, we have no idea. We don't think there's even a word for snow, you know?
Wow.
Yeah.
It does snow in India, though. There are parts of India where it does snow.
Not where I was from.
No, not
Not where I was.
what part of India did you grow up
In New Delhi.
in New Delhi?
Yeah, so
No.
it's definitely warmer than northern. I mean, it's North Delhi still, but it doesn't snow in New Delhi.
So
Maybe
the dialect you
it
grew up
definitely
speaking Hindi.
hails in New Delhi, right? You can
You
get
grew
the
up speaking Hindi then.
yeah. So
Okay.
I do. I still speak Hindi currently. I speak Punjabi, and it's interesting that my family, both my parents and my family, are from a part in originally part in Pakistan,
Mm.
right? When it was before the division and everything. So in our family, we speak Hindi, but we also speak Urdu. It's like a mix, right? It's a mixture of Hindi, Urdu, and Punjabi. So it's three different things. Yeah. Sometimes I
That's,
don't know what the word is from. Is this a Punjabi word? Is this a Urdu or Hindi? Yeah.
so does your son speak? Have you taught him as well?
So Diego, so I'm so glad you bring up Diego, my son. He's 11 years old and he understands Hindi. He doesn't speak it so much, but he has my parents speaking to him Hindi all day, and he's like, "Talk to me in English. I don't know what you're saying," but he does. He kind of gets the gist of it. He knows a lot of words, so he's actually mixing a lot of Hindi words and English words. So that's just where he's at.
So
That's awesome.
I've spoken to Geeta about this, is that my wife came over when she was 8 years old as well, was born in India, a different part, actually spoke Gujarati, but talked about like these amazing experiences, which Jody, you and I, like we can't imagine, like snow, wait a minute, that was in our backyard. We
Mhm.
saw that maybe the day that we were born. So it just fascinates me, and knowing full well the languages that are picked up too. But I still say to my wife, because we have two teenagers, is that like she should have spoke that language when she was here. I meant when the kids were just growing up, they would have gotten used to it. I've picked up a little bit just by hearing my name. Like I know that usually I've done something wrong when I hear my name. So I just follow that. Always amazed. But there are so many dialects, Geeta. This is what a lot of people don't know about India. I think we get snapshots of India on TV. We're learning more and how deep and rich the culture is. But there's so many dialects that are, I mean, my wife, who's Gujarati, said she learned Hindi by watching Bollywood movies. That's how she picked up the language. Not that anyone taught her. There's what, hundreds, thousands of dialects throughout the country?
100 something dialects. Every state has its own dialect. The other state cannot understand the other dialects.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
and so the Hindi was the national language. Now it's really English. I think English is taken over more as the primary national language, but English and Hindi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's great. I wish I could. My grandmother knew 7 languages, could read and write 7 languages, and taught us none of them. And I wish she would have at least taught us one of them. It would have been so great.
It's
Sounds like a very selfish individual.
Yeah.
it's not that easy, I have to say. Like, you know, teaching, like when you have my ex-husband, he was English, so he didn't speak Hindi. So it's like constantly trying to have a conversation between 3 people in one language, and teaching Hindi to a child in that environment is is a commitment. I'm going to say it's a commitment because it's not impossible. It's definitely a commitment.
Yeah. And my ex is Brazilian, so his family all spoke Portuguese. So we got words in there here and there, and I even learned some of those words. But again, I'd love to have been immersed. But I think that as you get older, for me, it's harder for me to pick up, new languages. I used to pick up things much quicker, obviously, when we were younger. So if we can immerse them when they're young, it's great. But otherwise, they're going to get little words here and there unless they focus on it. So that's great, though, that your son is immersed in it, right? Because your parents are so close by to you that he gets to hear it all the time.
Yep, exactly. So it's nice.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So moving on from you coming in and being totally amazed by snow and seed packets, which I think was such a great story. So thanks for sharing that. Tell us, where did you then land career-wise? Where did you go to college?
I grew up in New Jersey. I've been in the same, it's funny, I've been wanting to get out of New Jersey for so long, and I haven't been able to get out of, other than traveling, I have not been able to really just plant my feet somewhere else outside of New Jersey. So I am definitely a Jersey person, or a Jersey girl, and I went to Seton Hall, which is also in New Jersey. That's right. And it's really interesting.
Look at
I love that.
Let me change the view here because that's so great.
That's the Seton Hall Pirates. Sorry. Continue.
Show that one more time, Scott. I love it.
Fellow pirate.
That is really nice. That is nice. You know, I have to say that it wasn't just a regular track of applying for colleges, getting into colleges, that kind of thing. I think high school was a challenging time for myself in socializing, in learning, and also academically, as well as just culturally, really, to being able to immerse or blend 2 cultures, right? Coming from a very conservative Indian family, and being here and trying to be a teenage girl and trying to find her way around was not an easy thing. And so after high school, I actually had started in community college for a year. And then I transferred over to Seton Hall because a really good friend of mine went there. That was it, right? And I got accepted and we got enrolled, and I think the momentum kind of picked up from there. And I graduated with marketing and finance. And I have to tell you, what I do today has less to do with the marketing and finance, and it actually is more in line with the job I had at Seton Hall, right? So when I was at Seton Hall, I think for 2 or 3 years, I was a peer advisor. So I had anywhere from 10 to 15 freshman students that I was responsible in just making sure that they knew how to get around school, and if they had any concerns or issues, they had someone to connect with. And I never understood. They loved it, right? They loved having me as their peer advisor, and it was fun, but it just felt like a fun thing to do back then, right? It didn't even feel like work, and it was great. I got paid for it. But now, fast forward so many years. I'm not going to say how many years, but fast forward so many years, I have to say, even when I was in the banking industry, because that's where I started working. I started working in the banking industry, and I transitioned out of the banking industry into pharmaceutical sales. And I think and it's such a vastly different industry, right? How do you go from banking and into pharma sales? And my decision was really that I didn't want to sit at a cubicle for 12 hours.
Mhm.
And that I wanted to be like, I wanted to have some more, um, I don't know, a little bit more freedom than to just being in a cubicle. And so that was the decision. And I ended up in the pharmaceutical industry and having my own little business as a pharma sales representative and being supported by a company. And it was fantastic. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. And after the pharma experience, something happened actually. I got ill or I got sick. It's something really that seems kind of common to a lot of people now. It's a thyroid disorder or a thyroid dysfunction at the time. And I went to the best doctors. I worked with the medication. I used to promote some of the medications at that time. And I got tested and everything else. And I remember having the conversation with my doctor who simply said, well, here you go. Here's a pink little pill called Synthroid. You're gonna have to take this for the rest of your life because yes, your thyroid is not in balance, and all the blood work as well as the scans and everything else show you are at this point and you need to take that. And it was such a shock. I have to say it was such a shock because I used to promote it, but I never thought it was me who'd have to take it, right? Never had to have that decision be on my lap to being like, oh, this is something I have to do. And I took it for like 10 days and I said, no, this just doesn't feel right. Because as a pharmaceutical rep, you learn so much about all the drugs, the disease state, everything else. And it just didn't connect for me. I felt I was too young to take something for the rest of my life, let alone being consistent with taking supplements. I couldn't be consistent with taking that. And so I decided in that moment that I was going to do something about that I wasn't going to take that pill. My doctor was really upset because I had a good relationship with him, and he just thought I was an idiot because I should know better. I should know better. And I, as my determined, stubborn self, was like, well, there's got to be something else. And I ended up enrolling myself into nutrition school.
Mhm.
Right? I said, let me figure something out. And being in integrative nutrition, it was integrative nutrition, a holistic focused school that focused on nutrition and also health and wellness. And I can tell you, within the year and a half of being in the school and really understanding health and wellness and nutrition and everything else, I actually corrected the thyroid disorder, corrected it.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful for that because I would have been taking that for the rest of my life and it would have been something that my body would have been dependent on after a certain amount of time, right? But really having to transition, and that's really where I ended up just feeling not in alignment with pharma because I felt like, there was a due diligence that was missing. There was a gap in how healthcare was being offered. And so I stepped into the gap and I said, you know what? I'm going to be the health coach. And that's really where my coaching career as a coach started, was as a health coach.
I think this is so powerful because I even go back to the planting of seeds, because I think that was like almost like foreshadowing what was going to happen, is that you were going to help other people to plant their seeds. And then your experience through the pharmaceutical, it was almost like, which I know is a part of your work, you know what, we can change. We can make changes to ourselves. We can make changes to our health. We can make changes to our attitude. We can make changes to our business. And you are, and you have, but you are such an example to that change. And it was gathering information. It's not that you were resistant to medicine, is that you were basically connecting with that inner healer, with that inner doctor, and letting yourself know that we can do this, which probably set such a powerful precedent to say, well, wait a minute, if I can correct this, like what else am I capable of doing? So, you know what, and I know we're going to get into more of the work that you're doing right now, but that example alone that I know people connect with, like, it's one thing to share words. It's one thing to share information and strategies and techniques. It's another thing to live them. And this is just one of many examples that I know you have in which you've lived at, correct?
You know what? Yeah, Scott, you're absolutely right. But I think, it's really amazing is I think for myself, you're right, there's so many examples, right? And it's just who I am. And when you're just who you are, you actually don't know yourself well enough as someone else may, right? I feel that. Like when Scott, you're Scott, but like that's just who you are, right? But I think when someone else has a perception of what you're sharing, like, oh wow, I didn't know that was such a huge value to someone else because that's just how I am,
Right.
right? So I think that that's really kind of like such a huge part of the journey is to understanding the value that I myself bring or you yourself bring.
Absolutely. I want to bring out something because I think, you talk about how you made that transition. Transitions are hard. We talk about them and it's like, we talk about them when we make them and it's like, oh, we did it. We went from this industry to that industry and we did it and we connected. But there are pieces inside of ourselves that we have to go through internally to get ourselves to that other side. Because there'll be people watching this that'll be saying to themselves, well, I don't feel totally aligned possibly with what I'm doing right now, but I have no idea how to take the first step to get myself closer to what I do feel aligned to. What do you share with those people? How do they get themselves to, and how did you get yourself to really make that leap? It's a big leap to go from a pharma salary to then going to health coaching. So how did you make that leap?
Aren't you? You're really going deep on this, Jody.
Yeah.
Get to the part of the matter of things here. I think one thing I do value of myself is that you'll find I'll be open, I'll be authentic, and it's not all pretty. It's not all like, little roses or a nice little path that's kind of built for me to follow. But I'll tell you, so as a health coach, when I started, I think I was really naive. I was really naive to take the plunge and say, oh, you know what, forget pharma because I'm not in alignment with them. I'm just going to, now that I have my health coaching, I'm just going to go and be a health coach and earn my millions that way. And I can tell you, it was going back at it. I wish I had looked at it a little bit more carefully than I did. And I'll tell you why, because I was a fantastic health coach. There was no problem in being the health coach. I had clients that came in, I had a full schedule, and it was easy for me to do that because I just went back to the same physicians that I was working as a pharma salesperson. And instead of talking about, pharmaceutical drug, I was just talking about health coaching and how to provide that for their patients. And I had patients, I had clients that I was working with. So it wasn't a problem of me getting clients or building the business up. The challenge I had was how to earn the income that matched what I was earning in pharma and be able to keep up with my home and my expenses and my lifestyle that I was living on a pharma salary. And now I was like earning 80% less, right, than what I was earning. And it wasn't like it was a paycheck that was coming in, it was commission that was coming in. It wasn't like I don't have a paycheck this month, right? So I think that piece was a big piece for me to learn to navigate. And honestly, I got myself more in debt because of the transition of going and working as an entrepreneur than being in a job, in employment. And I got myself more in debt that led me to literally like slow down my business and go get a job because that was what was really happening. And I could tell you that I think I'm not alone. I'm not alone in that journey because I think a lot of people, a lot of individuals that step into being an entrepreneur is we don't know all the hats. We don't know all the pieces to how to navigate it. And
Geeta, how would you have done that differently, though? Again, I know that everything's brought you up to this moment. You're in an amazing place in your life, both professionally and personally. But if there were tweaks, again, that I know will or is a part of what it is that you share with others, but now you have the attention of our listeners here, is that what tweaks or differences would you have made knowing what you know now?
That's a good question. I think what I wish I had known, first, honestly, I wish that I had learned about business coaches. I wish I had learned. I mean, I myself am a coach. We're all coaches here in
Mhm.
some format or another. And
Mhm.
I really wish I had learned to work closely with a business coach, because it's one thing to go get your certificate, your degree, your license in whatever it is that you're going to coach, right?
Mhm.
That profession, and you could be a brilliant coach, but we need to also have an understanding of how to run a business, how to grow a business, right?
That
And
structure, that organization.
and I can't go get another certificate for that.
No,
Okay.
I understand that
I
completely.
cannot.
so this is where we both, and maybe Jody has too, we have actually graduated from the School of Hard Knocks.
Oh,
We have.
without a
We've
doubt.
done that route with our businesses and so forth. So we have graduated. It's not the most popular, but I will tell you is that they are flooded with graduates.
They are. And Geeta,
Our story.
yeah, and I just want to share, same boat as you. I did the same thing. I went back to get my certification, and then I left that great job and had some great clients, and then had to go back to work. And it was definitely hard, and you don't feel good about it, but it makes who we are today. And at least we know that we followed our heart, even though we had some stress related to that. All the things along, I don't think anything is ever that word failure should not even be in our vocabulary, because it's not we're not failing, we're learning with everything that we do. Any challenge or obstacle, we're learning from it. So I appreciate you sharing that story.
Yeah, no, certainly. And I think if I go back to it, I would say the thing I would do differently is hire a business coach, because
Yep.
that's honestly, it would save me years of heartache, and I know that myself, because as a business coach, I've mentored and I've advised people, no, you're not ready to go, stay here, and let's work your magic right here and develop certain things, and then you'll be ready. And it's so much nicer, right? You feel much more comfortable. And whether it's like, am I ready to be on my own, or whether it's a conversation with your spouse, or how do you restructure this so that the boat floats, right? And you grow in the direction that you want to do. And you know what, um, Jody and Scott, I say this time, this year, all of the changes that's happened in last year, this year with COVID, there are more women and there are more people that are really stepping into being entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
There are more and more people that are doing that. And I think that there's certain levels of understanding of like, okay, it's not a 1 year gig. Right? It's like a 5 year plan of how am I really growing, and understanding like, where do I need to change things on a personal mastery of like getting up early, because there's no boss, there's no clocking in, there's no team, it's just you, and not doing the laundry first, but like setting your own hours and sticking with it, and learning to like really how to show up at your own best for yourself. Because I know, in when I was working, showing up best for someone else, a company or my boss, was so much easier than to show up best for my business.
Yeah.
This is where Geeta is so real. So just so everyone out there realizes that Geeta and I met a couple years ago, maybe 3 years ago, as she became a part of the Seton Hall University Leadership Advisory Council, in which I sit on as well. And she's had an opportunity to, and this is where it's wonderful. And again, I don't believe in coincidences, is that by living this now, by going through these experiences of being an entrepreneur, bumps and bruises that go along, it's not like been there, done that. You're living that still. And at the same time, you've acquired the knowledge and the experience to be able to share that message through this council, through students at Seton Hall University who participate in this program, which I always say, whoever comes on the show, #1 program in the country, 5 years running. So now you get to teach people, you get to coach people. And part of that, which I would love for you to tell us about, is that there's a women's group within the program now that wasn't, and you're one of the key facilitators. Tell us about that program, and also about some of the students that are in the program, because I'm sure in some ways you're seeing your mirror reflection.
Mm-hmm.
And now, knowing what you know, you're able to share some things that are going to help them advance a little bit more at their age. Tell us about those experiences, please.
Wow, yeah, that's a big connection you made, Scott. So thank you for that. You know what? Yeah, so right now I have been invited actually um, by the director of our, arching program, by Rich and Consol, to step in as a leader in resident, and really to support and and kind of look at the women's leadership program, or the Stillman Women's Leadership Program at Seton Hall, and to see what we can do to grow that program. And it's been something that I've been really working deeply with and deeply in. And I can share a couple of things with you at this point. One is that currently, the program, um, right now, the way it is, it's set up as, there's the main part of the program, or the main aspect of the program, is this beautiful relationship that in connecting the mentors with the mentees, right? With the students, with a women student and a women mentor, to really support them in whatever areas that comes up in the conversation. I can tell you that my personal relationship with my student mentors or mentees that I've worked with over the last 4 years in the program, it's been so precious. And I think what I have been trying to instill with them is this idea of being open and ask, right? Ask the topic. There's no small topic. There's no like, is this appropriate kind of topic, right? It's like, just step in and start to open up, and really to teach them to open up and open up. And I think that that's a really important characteristics, because I remember being, an advisor. I remember being a student at Seton Hall when I was there, and that was the biggest thing. You wanted to look good, you wanted to please, you wanted to make sure that you were saying the right thing at the right time. But just to now go back and say, you know what, if you're thinking it, trust me, 10 other people in that room are thinking it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So you could take the lead and ask.
Jody, it sounds like a change maker.
Yes, I think that's what the name of this podcast is. I'll have to check.
Geeta's building change makers. Wow, now I know. It just dawned on me why she's on our program. Your program.
It is ours. We've been doing this a couple times now, Scott.
So, one thing I want to just, the vision that I'm hoping that kind of we move along with this program, is really to build an alliance, right? We have such awesome executive women that are part of this program. It's like such a treasure, a treasure in our vault. And I want to be able to connect that and build an alliance for the students, not just for while they're students, but like long after they graduate. So they can reconnect and be able to reconnect and get value and resources that they would love to know that they have for the rest of your life, right? It's not just being a part of your life now, but it's part of your life for the rest of your life. And that's really where I'm looking to, how could we build this program so that it has that kind of leverage to it.
Right. So Geeta, we're talking about women's leadership. Gender equity is something that goes along with that. I'm speaking on behalf of all men. So if you're listening to this and you're a man right now, yeah, I'm speaking on behalf of you. I'm actually asking the question. I'm putting our vulnerability out there. I'm putting our ears out there. I'm closing our mouths. What can we be doing more of, less of, or new to embrace? And I don't even want to say this movement. There shouldn't even be a movement. There should be that equality moving forward, but unfortunately there's not. What can we do to bridge this gap that anyone out there who's thinking it's not there, you're ignorant right now, as was I. What can we be doing more of, less of, or new to bridge this gap and deepen our understanding as men?
I was just having the same exact conversation yesterday with one of our mentors, and they were saying the same thing, like, this shouldn't even be here. It should just be this. And I have to beg to differ. I don't care if there is equality. There should still be a women's leadership. There should still be a women's leadership. And you know why? Because it's fun. It's fun to mingle. Women's are like, you need to have your pod of friends. It's just like the guys having a guy time and doing their guy thing. And I really feel like that women should really have a group where women are supporting women and doing their women thing, right? Doing their girl stuff kind of thing, and really supporting that, because at the end of the day, even if there's equality, we're still different.
Right.
We're still different, right? So that's the first. And I do feel like it's not to not have the men in that space or in that room either, because I think it's so important. So part of the women's group that we have is to start looking at how do we bring the men in to engage in this group, because it's such an important thing, right? Because at the
I
end of
offered. I said, I'll be that first guy that you bring into your group. I'm
I know
fine.
you did.
I told
know.
you that. I do that.
And you know
I'm
what?
your guinea pig. I'm here. That's why I'm representing all men today. So
And I'll tell you that I do feel that it's a really important place, right? To have a space where we could have the men in the room for several reasons. One is, let them hear, let them observe, let them see what are the challenges, or what are they actually talking about, right? Because I'll tell you, Scott, you have a daughter, right? And she's going to be in the workforce at some point in some way. And she's going to hit a wall with things. And you're going to want to know, like, hey, how do I support her? Is she getting the support? And where could she go? Kind of thing. So I think it's important to have men support the program, be an alliance to the program. I don't know exactly how or what yet, but I think it'll unfold itself. But I think that has to be a really important part of the program to make it, to give it a really quality reputation, and also to sustain it in long term. Does that answer what you're talking about?
that's great advice. It gets back to me keeping my mouth closed, opening my eyes, opening my ears, rather than offering an opinion all the time, just sitting back. And I think there's so many, and again, I don't want to use the word movement, but I guess that's what it's called right now, because it is moving forward. I think with any kind of movement, that's what we need to be doing more of opening our eyes, more of opening our ears, and closing our mouths, and just processing things for a little while. And then when that like good question comes up, ask it, and don't be afraid to ask it. So no, it was very helpful. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Geeta. Yeah, I had another guest on just a little while ago, Michelle Sakurka, who's the CEO and president of the NJBIA. And one of the things that we, and I'm a consultant for them, we do is we hold a yearly Women's Business Leaders Summit to talk about this. And first year, maybe there were 3 men in the room, but that wasn't the point. The point wasn't only to invite the women, we needed the men in the room, because you're going to be working for them. You might even be supervising them. They need to be part of the conversation. That's just a once a year, event to bring everybody together. And there's lots of those all over. But that continuing conversation in a program like yours, where there's mentorship, I think I mentioned mentorship on every single podcast. I know, Scott, on every podcast you've been on, we've mentioned it. So who are your mentors, Geeta? I'm not asking for the names, but what were the types of people that you look to for mentorship?
That's a really good question. So, it's I've had a couple of mentors, I would say, but I think the one that I really value the most has been my own personal study and mentorship with Bob Proctor. Right? I talked about Bob Proctor before. Where is it? Right there. Right? There's Bob Proctor and Sandy Gallagher. He is a phenomenal person. I mean, and I think I've learned so much from him and I've learned so much. I mean, we could just have a whole other session just on that. But I think if I could say what's been the biggest thing that I've learned from him is how to be calm, regardless of my circumstances. how to be confident in the face of uncertainty and be strong within me. And it means like your bank account doesn't represent who you are. Your friendships doesn't represent who you are. Your divorce or your relationship or whatever it is you're choosing doesn't represent who you are and what you're capable of. And for me, coming from a culture that's so repressive for women, right? Maybe not now. Maybe a lot of people are like, no, not anymore. But I'll tell you, it's still so new. It's still so young in women really feeling free and supported, and that equality piece. That coming from that kind of a culture, I always thought that my self worth was based on the kind of grades I got, kind of the the major I picked, um, the man I married or didn't marry, the money I made, right? And when I really started to study and work and be mentored by Bob and all the work that he's done, I really learned and began to really just blossom in my own strength. And that I am so deeply grateful for, because it truly does not matter what is happening in and around me, right? It's like I kind of know I have this little invisible crown on, right? I know that I have
See
this.
it. I see it. Do you see it?
Stop.
Yeah.
See it.
It's sparkling.
Oh,
You have
thank you.
royalty on. She's an Indian queen. Absolutely. Geeta, you know what I would ask you is that, and if not, that's fine too, and it might happen one day. Do you have a calling? Again, I know we're kind of traveling back to India now, but do you have a calling based on, and the reason I was smiling before, and you know this, is like I love India. I've been there 7 times. My wife's Indian. My kids are half Indian. Is that I love the country, but everything you're sharing is absolutely the case. Everything you're talking about in terms of that transformation, in terms of not necessarily going along with traditional stereotypes or a certain way of thinking. Do you want to bring that, I guess the word comes from me, that liberation message to women and probably even men to a certain degree? Do you have that calling to bring it back to India?
I would love that, Scott. I would absolutely, it's sort of going with the opportunities that come and find me, right? That are that present themselves. And then to one of the things I love is I love going deep in the work, right? So there's no rush to get on to any plane to go do anything unless unless the opportunity presents itself and we can go really deep into it.
Let's go to India.
Let's go.
Let's go. I'm up for an 8th trip. Come on, let's go. No, but your work is so important, and Bob Proctor is phenomenal. I've read so many of his books and absolutely resonate with his message. And it's absolutely, and I'm not just saying India, and I'm not just saying women. It is a universal message that more people absolutely need to embrace. And so, yeah, again, we come back to the planting of the seeds. The seeds have been planted, and I think they've been planted already to say, hey, you know what, if I'm supposed to be bringing this message back to India, that path is going to appear. But I think you're creating that path as well as we speak.
Yeah, no, certainly. The biggest thing that I've come to realize, I'll tell you this one story, all right? This is when I was little, younger, before I even came to the States. I was in India, and I lived in New Delhi, and the street that I lived in was this like dead end street, right? Or what you would call like a cul-de-sac. And it was a street that my grandfather owned, right? So all the properties on that street we owned and rented out most of them. And it was really cool because all the kids, I had so many cousins. We all just kind of lived on that street together, and we would play on that street together. And I realized that at that time, at that age, like the thing that I used to do was to bring people together and come up with a fun idea, and we would all be a part of it, right? We would just all the little kids would be all up for it. And one day, what happened was we had these um, these workers that were sort of, I don't know, like building the second story of our house, right? So they were like brick workers, bricklayers, and they were working and they were sweating and they were hot. It was a hot day, and so I came up with the idea is like let's make them a nice cold drink and give it to everybody, right?
Ooh, can I ask, was it Limbu Pani?
No, you know what it was? Do you remember Quick Mix?
Yes. Wow.
So we had like,
American. You had
we
that?
had one box, mind you not, of the strawberry Quick Mix.
Oh my
So
gosh.
I said, well, let's make like lemonade style, but it was more like the Quick Mix. It's called the Rosa or whatever, the drink, right? Like a cool drink for them. And literally had like a streamline of kids, like I was mixing, and then so and so were all distributed who was going to go do what, and we were all doing it. And the people getting the drink, they were so happy about it. And then my uncle came, this military dude, right? Who was like this serious, stern guy, and kiboshed the whole darn thing, right? He kiboshed it. He's like, who do you think you guys are? What are you doing? What are you feeding these guys for? Like, this is not what we need to be doing. You know, there's this whole classification system. Like, why are we feeding these people that are here working? And he kiboshed the whole thing, right? And I was so mad at him. I was so mad at him for like 2 days. I wouldn't talk to him. And he was calling me names, and I was just like, I don't want to talk to him. And but what I realized is, you know, we go through these changes or this training in life from being this free spirited child, right? And doing what naturally comes to you. And then you get trained out of it. You literally get trained out of it. You get trained into a system, whatever that system that you're in, right? And then you don't know how to be, or at least I didn't know how to be, because I was still like, my natural tendency was to be that free spirited, innovative, fun, take charge and make things happen at that age. And what I could tell you is like the work I did with Bob and the time I spent in that, I got to learn to find that core of me again, right? And I think if I could really help the students, the women students, or whoever I'm working with, right? And like the individual people that I work with, if I can help them how to align or reconnect with that spirit of their childhood, and then how do you translate that into their current wealth and the abundance that they desire and want, I tell you, it's going to be like magic, right?
He's probably no longer alive, but I would say Grandpa needs your coaching. Grandpa back in India.
Oh, my uncle. Yeah.
Uncle, I'm sorry. Your uncle needs to find some fun and joy and bring that little boy.
You know, and yeah. He was a great uncle, but he was doing his uncle thing.
Yeah.
He was doing his uncle thing. But I mean, and that's what I'm so thrilled and excited about, is that like I have this cellular understanding of how do you really truly find that light within you, right? And how do you shine it so bright and not worry about the wealth? Because once you shine that thing and you understand how it works, the wealth, the abundance, the relationship, everything just sort of lines up, and it's like a magnet. You're certainly a magnet for those things, and it's inevitable. Like you're going to get it. So I always say, like, the idea of money is just a byproduct of who you are and who you become.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're a PGI consultant, right?
Yeah.
Right. So do you want to just explain what a PGI consultant means to those listening?
Oh, yeah, Jody. So PGI consultants, I mean, we're trained in the methodology and modalities of Bob Proctor's work, right? And more specifically, what I really do is help people to really understand that dreams are real, that dreams are possible, and if they have the commitment to really want that dream, like there's just three things: is you really have to know what you want, and it's got to be something you've never done. It's got to be something that you actually have no idea how you're going to do it. It can't be a dream that you think you kind of have an idea of how to get to A to B. No, This has got to be something you have no idea, you've never done it, you don't even know where to begin. And so we take them through a process, a step-by-step process of really learning how to transform their thinking and align their thinking with how they're feeling to the behaviors and the actions that they're taking, and help them to get from where they're at to really be on the track to achieving that goal, where it's not just a dream, that they just know it's happening or it happens. Yeah. And really do that from a phenomenal vetted program and process called Thinking into Results, right? And so that's what we do. It's like a 6-month program, and we take them from one to the other, and it works amazing.
So how do people find you, Geeta? Where can they find you? Website, social media?
Yeah. So I think Facebook is probably the best place to connect with me. You can look up Geeta Trikha, or Geeta Anjali Trikha is a really great place. My website is really great. It's Anjali Associates. It's, Anjali, ANJALI ASSOC.com. Right? You could look up Anjali Assoc and you can find me there. But I think the Facebook is probably the easiest because we're all kind of social beings and we're there. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I have one last question. I can't believe we're almost out of time. It goes so fast when we're talking and we're listening. We're all engaged and involved, and we're hanging on your every word, Geeta, as you take us on your journey, which is always incredible to be. Right, Scott? Isn't it incredible just to listen to the journeys of all of the guests?
I love it. And on one hand, you feel like you know a person. On the other hand, it's like you just discovered a person. And that's the beautiful thing. But I think, and this is what we've been talking to guests about, is that this is how we connect with people, is that we talk, we ask questions, we listen, we absorb. Wouldn't it be great if everybody, whether it be 3 people like this or 5 people, could just kind of like do that on an ongoing basis and connect, get to know people, see our differences, see our similarities, but see that we're all trying our best and to move forward. So we appreciate the lessons today, Geeta.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Jody, for hosting this beautiful Today's the Day Changemakers. I mean, this idea and this podcast is really, really amazing. I've had a chance to listen to so many of the other speakers. So really, thank you for your commitment and the time that you're putting into making this available for so many people. And Scott, you are such a blast. You know what? I appreciate both of you, because I think a lot of the things that you asked today, I wasn't sure what you were asking for, but I was really happy to see like the memories that you guys jogged for me today and what came up.
Oh, Geeta, Jody's not done with you yet. So
Oh, did I?
no. Here's the finale. You talked that like, what did you say with me? You're a what? What did you say that I was before?
I said
a bang,
blast,
a blast, a blast.
Not bang, but blast.
Get ready to blast off with this question that Jody's going to ask you now.
I ask if you listen to the podcast, you know it's coming. I ask every guest the same question at the very end, and it is, if you knew then what you know now, what would that be? And it doesn't have to be one specific thing. It could be 2 or 3. But what would you tell your younger self?
If you knew then what I know now,
Yeah.
Practice more being relaxed. And the way to do that, I find the way to do that is breathe in, breathe out. It's so amazing how it's like it's that part of us that we're born with, and it's free and it's abundantly available, the air we breathe, right? And it's easy, and there is an art to breathing. And that art, if you could learn just to take a breath in uncomfortable situations, in every kind of conversation, you are half the way already ahead. I think just learning to really stay calm and being relaxed in all situations. I think that's one of the biggest things that I wish I knew then, right? Because I didn't realize that the answers for what I want are so close to me, right? The answers that I thought that other people had were so close to me. And I think the other thing that I would have paid more attention to, or I would have asked more people, what do they like about me? I would have asked more people, what do they like about me, rather than me thinking that I have to be this or that to be liked, right? And then to like acknowledge myself more. We could be best friends to others, but we're not trained to be best friends to ourselves, right? And I think if I could go back, and I do this with my son now, right? I mean, we do as coaches and as people that learn, you learn to like really um, dive into how to train my son how to speak, and just to continuously um, show him what he's really good at. To just talk to him, wow, how loving he is, because every morning he gets up and he wants to give a hug to his grandparents, and why that's valuable, right? And all these little things. And I think that's what if I could just have those simple foundational pieces to just feel good about myself, I think life would be, it just goes easier.
Isn't it amazing how when you start to think about it, like you can add more things to the list of if I knew then what I know that now, it's all of a sudden at first you're not, I know like most of my guests are like, okay, I think of one thing, but then all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, I have another thing I just thought of. The list goes on because we've learned so much and we don't always pay attention to all that we've learned along the way. And we just do.
Okay, so I have one more thing.
Yes, go.
No. Only three.
I have one more thing. I
Yep.
have one more thing. This idea of this is the thing that I learned, and I loved when I learned it. It was like the idea of being of value, right? But the value I thought I had to be was smart. I thought I had to like get the A's, or I had to know a lot about science or math or speak really eloquently. And it's, yeah, that's all good. But there's something even easier. It's called smiling. Right? It's called like looking people in the eye and smiling and just simply saying, "Hey, I like you. How are you?" Right? And that, making someone else feel good about themselves, is like, oh my God, the biggest value that I can be for someone else and I can bring. And I think, like, if I can go back in time, and even when I didn't know how to speak English and I didn't know any of that, and if someone could just say, just smile, and like, listen, you'll be good. I think those are some simple things, but people forget, right? We get so caught up in trying to build this reputation when it's like you could just smile. All right, I'm done.
Oh, that was incredible because when you smile and you shine your light, that's your light. Your light comes from your face. Every part of your face awakens when you smile. And I think that was so well said. So thank you for that. Geeta, I think, Scott, we could have talked to Geeta for another hour or so or more because there's so many things to cover. So I hope you'll come back and be a guest in the future. We'll get an update. We'll have another fun time, the three of us. Geeta, any last thoughts that you wanted to share before we end?
You know what? I had a lot of fun. A lot of fun. And I just really want to say thanks for inviting me. Scott, thank you. Jody, thank you for really having me and holding the space here for me. Yeah, it was really fun time to be able to share. Yeah.
Three of us are in service, right? And so it's always always nice to be surrounded by people who are of like mind, to be in service and to try to help and support and make a difference in the world. That's why I've created this space. And Scott, I want to give you a second to tell everybody how to follow you and where to find you.
Oh, I'm Geeta's bodyguard. So find out. I'm that guy in a wheelchair. It's a real tough job. I was actually standing when I started. No, if you want to reach me, I can be reached at my website, www.scottchesney.com. And at that website, you'll find all my social media handles there as well.
Awesome. Thank you both. Scott, I love co-hosting with you. And Geeta, thank you for being an amazing guest.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you again.
No problem. So just so everybody knows, to follow Today is the Day, it's on Facebook and on Instagram at Today is the Day Live It, LIVEIT. And please like, subscribe, and share our channel here. And I'll say the last thing that I always say on every podcast: today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what will you do today to bring yourself just that one step closer to reaching or meeting your goal? So have a great week, everyone. And again, thank you to my wonderful guest and my wonderful guest co-host. Have a great week.